Originally released in 1993 on a Super Famicom, but remade in 2024, although the Switch 2 version came out this year, 2025, Romancing Saga 2, Revenge of the Seven, with the subtitle being there, specifically for the 3D remake version. The main premise is that the 7 heroes, who were once people that helped save the world, are now back after millennia, and they're back with a vengeance trying to kill all humanity, with the current ruler of Avalon dying in the process, but using a sacred inheritance magic in order to pass down their abilities to their son. So now it's up to you to essentially not only take on the 7 heroes, but deal with all the issues plaguing Avalon, and with the inheritance magic, you will keep passing down your abilities to the next character, and trust me, this does a lot for the gameplay, but I'll say more in that segment. So with the passing of each generation, you essentially have the ability to pick out who the next emperor will be, with you essentially picking them based on whatever gameplay abilities they have, or maybe it's because some certain side quests do require some emperors who have a specific background, which is very cool. The one thing I don't like, which I'm so find disappointing, is the fact that the first emperor you're playing as, Gerard, has his own personality, has a dynamic with his family and everything, and is a very good character to start the journey with, but then every emperor afterwards will become a side protagonist. They have no speaking rules outside of combat, and you do have plenty of dialogue options during the start of the game, but they don't speak at all. The final emperor, however, does have a speaking role, but only when it's a side quest from their generation. If you were completing a side quest that you didn't do before, then they'll go back to being side protagonists and instead only gesturing. But they do the characters gesture very well to everything, so there is that cool aspect when it comes to when they make a fact that they're silent. It's not as if they're emotionless slates. They clearly have their own expressions on their face. Everything is the fact that it seems like, however, one emperor may respond to something, the next emperor will have effectively the same response to that side quest. There's no real difference in terms of how the emperor responds. It's more so how you, the player, pick your choices. And oh my, are there plenty of choices. There's a lot of different ways you can go to events in this game. Granted, the finale and the outcome will remain the same, but how you get there, or in what order you do it, can be radically different depending on the choices you make, and there's even a cool thing in the credits where they'll recap what that emperor did during a generation. So there is that whole aspect where it does keep track of that information, so that's very cool that there are many different ways how you can handle a side quest and stuff and get different outcomes. Some may get you new units or a new character, type they can use for an emperor or a party member. Some may have you end up failing to do that, but you still technically fulfilled the request. There's many ways some quests can handle. I can remember to look up one quest and finding out I could flat out fail the quest entirely, which I initially did, or I could do it, but do it in a way where I don't unlock a new unit in the process. And so there's a lot of stuff to it. I mean, there's a lot of stuff for the characters to pretty much respond to your choices. So even if the emperor themselves, or even also your whole party, aren't necessarily interesting characters to follow, everything else in the game makes up for it, because Avalon itself is essentially the protagonist. All these people, all the side quests, all the stuff you're doing, they take center stage here, and the game does this very well. This remake adds in backstories for the 7 heroes so you can understand how they formed, everything aerodynamic, and while they are entertaining and do give more into the 7 heroes as characters, it comes with the downside that they're told in a non-linear fashion. You just find them throughout the world, so you can generally find them in any order. And while I like the fact that side quests can be done in any order, having something that's clearly telling a certain narrative through line being told out of order can cause problems, like how I found the last cutscene for them, but I was missing several other cutscenes that led up to it, so I'm just like, okay, they're saying stuff that gives me the idea of what happened, but I don't know the build-up on how they got here still. So there's that kind of aspect where you can just find them out of order because how the game is designed, but it is cool they do give you more to learn from them. Even if you don't find them, you do get at least a basic gist from the 7 heroes themselves. Granted, since it comes from their mouth, you may not necessarily trust the information they're saying or think, maybe there's something more to it since the way they're saying it may not fully add up, you know? Overall, I just really like the narrative. Even if your main character and your party don't really have much going on, I just like every other story being told within this game setting, and how you're also trying to go to places and add them to your empire of Avalon, everything, how you can handle certain side quests and probably botch it up horribly if you want to, and stuff like that. And like I said, the backstory for the 7 heroes is entertaining and does give a good glimpse to how 7 heroes became the way they did, as wish they weren't told in a non-linear fashion. But it's easy to go back to places if you miss something and look around, you know. So, narrative, I like it a lot. To highlight the ridiculousness of some of the way the story can fold out, my 3rd emperor, who I believe was named Jason, pretty much went missing because this dude fell in love with a mermaid and spent the rest of his life with her, and that became a legend. And this is not even a joke, it's a thing you can do in the game, and it also is a reason to do it, because it unlocks also another unit if you do this quest line. Granted, you may end the generation early by doing it, but it's a thing you can do. Rick and dude went, screw being the emperor, screw the 7 heroes, I got my mermaid wife, and that's all that matters. Now for the gameplay, which, like I said, there are many choices in there that can affect certain outcomes of quests, everything, as they play out, whether or not you get certain unlockables or fail the quest entirely. But as for the combat, it's a turn-based RPG, but the combat is a style where the equipment is what matters most, because there's no levels per se. Every character has stats that they gain the more they do something, but they can only get you so far. What matters more is keeping your party's equipment up to date, or some equipment has made special abilities that will decrease your stats. It can give you a bonus that you want. Like I said, doing more actions more gets you more abilities. Using a sword more gets you more points into using that sword, which then allows you to unlock more skills. Some skills also have to be unlocked via glimmers, which is essentially the character getting a glimmer of inspiration during combat. The only downside to this mechanic is that it is very random whether or not it actually happens, but you do have markers on your attacks that do highlight when an attack is closer and closer to unlocking a glimmer, which will give you a new skill. Some weapons themselves can also give you skills that don't take up a slot in your skills, so that's pretty neat. So combat part more of doing more of the thing will make you better at it. It also means that because no general level ups, that swapping out your party every generation isn't that bad of an issue, especially since each generation, the units will essentially have their own quirks to everything that they have to put on their class. Or, if you use units of that class per generation, the next generation will also inherit abilities from that as well, so you're building on more and more. Like I said, you do want to diversify your party because each unit has a special unique ability. These abilities can be learned, but once it's learned, you can then master it, which will allow other party members to equip it. So you want a unit for their ability, but not exactly for their skill set. You can just get their ability, master it, and then everyone in your party can use it, which is super cool. That's lots of customization. This game is customization heavy. Another cool thing is the evasion mechanic, which is, at points, a character may learn how to completely dodge an attack. If you have that attack then equipped as an evasion, they will be guaranteed to dodge that attack every single time it is used. You can then master that to allow other party members to learn that ability, making your entire party always evade that attack. Now mind you, you can only equip 40 evasion at a time, and there's many attacks in the game. It's not going to be some broken thing where you can just completely cheese the game. You have to have at least got the evasion skill first in order to use it, and then have it mastered so all the other characters can then also have it with them. But it is such a cool mechanic that they use even very early on to introduce how it works. and everything. I've never seen an RPG have a mechanic like that where a character flat out learns how to completely dodge an attack every time. And this also is done with boss attacks as well, with that actually being the example. So there are points you can learn an attack that a boss may use and then be able to always avoid the attack and everything for the entire party. That just makes when the boss uses that attack a complete free turn for you, because the boss will miss every time, and it's such a freaking cool mechanic to include. The last common mechanic is the Unite mechanic, which allows, at first, 2 of your party members to have attacks back to back, with the benefit being that their attacks will actually be amplified to do double damage. Now, the game auto-picks the attacks, but it automatically picks the character's best attack for it, so even though maybe at times we can wish, like, want to switch something else, at least it's going for the thing that do the most damage. Like I said, it's 2 party members at first, because you can upgrade it to even have the entire party be able to jump in. The downside to this mechanic is that it will use the turns of the characters in the Unite. So to keep in mind that if you start using it late, you may end up skipping your entire turn in order to have all the characters do maximum damage. So especially at points in the 5-party version of it is one of those you better be doing a do or die moment, because you're gonna waste your entire turn just trying to do the most maximum damage you could possibly do. But it is such a cool mechanic, and the only downside is the fact that it picks the characters based on the turn order. So let's say you want 2 characters who want to do attack back to back, has to be their turns next to each other. It also means that you can't just do this at the end of all the turns, because once the end, there's no one else left to do it with, and it goes to that next cycle on the bar for the next amount of turns. And also, a downside is also the fact that, not downside, but plus side is also the fact that you can also do this even if the turns are not directly next to each other. Let's say you have one party member, an enemy, and a party member. You could just use Unite and 2 party members attack. So even if the enemy should go in the middle, it will skip their turn and then they go after the Unite. Another thing to keep in mind for to get big damage even before enemies turn like that. The combat in this game is just so much fun to use, and it allows you just customize like crazy, especially the Emperor. Like I said, the final Emperor will be the combination of everything that the previous Emperors have done. So definitely want to experiment more, maybe want to specialize early on. Like I said, the most important factor will be your equipment, so make sure the equipment is up to snuff, maybe it's with the smithy, getting new equipment, or the stuff you find in the dungeons. Speaking of which, the dungeons, when it comes to venturing out, it has like some unique weird quirks of the fact that in order to get a sneak attack, it's very finicky. Like, I don't know how it works, because sometimes you can be in front of an enemy and it gives you a prompt, sometimes you can be right behind them and it won't give you the prompt, but you can do a sneak attack depending on whatever angle the game wants, which does give you the incentive in combat. However, if the enemy sneaks up on you, then it will break your formation, with the formation being how your parties line up. The downside is the formations are typically based on ones to have unlocked, which you do get more if you diversify your emperors, because of the fact that each emperor brings a new formation with them and everything into combat. So there's that cool quirk, and each formation does have their own plus sides and downsides, with some giving bonuses like extra defense to certain kind of elements and stuff. But I kind of wish we would be able to more freely customize it, but I think at that point we already have some customization. There's probably at some point that's a pretty much go, hey, dial it back. Another weird quirk to exploration is that there are times where you will unlock new locations based on NPCs telling you about them, and you can immediately fast travel. But then there are some locales that you have to actually manually walk towards. The reason I find it weird is because of the fact of, since it's sometimes this, sometimes that, there was a large point in the game where I didn't know there are so many areas I could just walk to on a map, because at that point, all I had was the game giving me points based on NPCs going, hey Emperor, go over here for this task, and I got a fast travel point, since you mostly just fast travel around the entire map. But some areas do have entire landscapes with multiple entrances, multiple exits, in order for you to get across further on the map and get to new locales, do new quests, add more locations to your empire and stuff like that. But I don't know, maybe I'm just stupid, but It took me a while to realize that was even a thing. I had to look that up because I was wondering, how come I can't go to this part of the map? Not how that there was one side quest that involved a ship, but I couldn't do a side quest because I didn't have an emperor who specifically specialized in piloting a ship. And because the game decided to screw me out of the roulette for the emperors, I never had the opportunity to get an emperor who could pilot a ship. I could get party members who could, but the choice for my emperor never did happen. Which is another downside. It feels like it's just randomly chosen which of the units you can make into an emperor. So there are some side quests may revolve around needing a certain kind of emperor, only for the game to never give you the option to have them, making you miss out on the side quest entirely as a result. Another cool thing is the fact that while you are hunting down the 7 heroes, they can also pop up in quests you don't expect, with many NPCs being surprised when you come back and mention how one of the 7 heroes showed the F up. So, don't think that every quest for some hero will be some big telegraph thing. Sometimes they could just be part of a different quest, and you may not even expect it at all. Fortunately with this game, when it comes to dungeons, there is always a heal spot at the end of a dungeon, and a save spot, so even if you go through combat using all your BP to use skills, you will always have a safety net that at the very end, there will be a heal spot so you'll be properly prepared for the boss encounter. On top of the fact that this game automatically heals a party's HP after every fight, the only that's a downside is that you don't recover BP, which can get spent pretty fast, although not too fast. That's a good while before you spend it all. There is also one locale that specifically has an effect on your party, one that reduced the maximum HP as you were in it. And that was the only time a locale did something unique like that, where it simply affected how your party operated. It also made so enemies will have an easier time killing you and stuff like that. But only time. Other times, dungeon journeys just have multiple different ways to search for exploration, where you get lost and try to find goodies and stuff like that. But none of that specifically affected your party like that. That made that place really unique in that sense, although it did leave party members getting beat very hard. Which, for me, I forgot, your party members have life points. What are life points? Life points are what each party member has, and when they get knocked out, they lose one. If you don't revive them in combat, and they get hit again, they'll lose another life point. When their life point is at 0, this character is permanently lost. So you want to make sure your characters don't lose all their life points, or at least another reason where you want to rotate your characters per generation. If your best unit has no life points left and they get killed, then they're essentially gone. There are also some enemies that can just directly take away life points as an attack. So once again, even if you think they got a point of HP and defense, they'll be fine. No, the game goes, you think they're safe, and then they die. They just lose all their life points. So there's a lot of stuff that try and make you keep on your toes. Like I said, they're permanently lost if they're gone. This also includes the Emperor themselves, who can be defeated, and the game will skip to the next generation. Or you can also have them step down from the throne, although I'm not sure why you would do that. Although, from what I've read, there are also some incentives for why sometimes having the Emperor fight until they're defeated is also a good option, so there's just plenty of stuff in this effing game that you just don't expect. As for the game's text, I don't have anything much bad to say about it. I love the fact that almost every aspect of the text has its own little background, and the fact that it's stylistic with everything. Like, even the character's little information in combat has its own little background to make the life points and information easier to read. The complaints I have is the tutorial text is a bit small, as well as the accessory information as well when you're equipping items, and the main one being the fact that the cutscenes don't have backgrounds for the text, which is very odd because the only one out of everything else that generally has background with text. So cutscenes could have used that same treatment with the text as well, but overall, don't have much bad to say about it. I just like the UI, I feel like it does work, and that text said tutorial. Text is a bit small. I do tend to zoom in, and I do especially zoom in when it comes to the accessory information, because it's buried like the bottom part of the screen for some reason. But overall, mostly just the cutscene text. could have used a back like everything else already does have. Overall, I really liked Romancing Saga 2, Revenge of the Seven. There's just so much great gameplay customization and the way different outcomes for side quests can come out. I always heard that the Saga franchise was inspired by how Final Fantasy 2 played, where you had to do action multiple times or to level it up, but this one simplifies it for Final Fantasy 2, where instead of like each individual weapon or item and spell, here is more the fact of, hey, water spells are stuff that heal you. Fire spells can be both used for a revival ability or maybe a defensive option and stuff like that, so it's more simplified. And while there are many different weapons that each character can specify in, the fact that units come with the fact that by default they have one they specialize in means you're not starting from scratch for each generation or each unit, and the fact that each generation builds off the last one is what definitely helps it, especially for the Emperor. As for the story, like I said, you're looking for something for your main character to be super interesting. The setup is with the first Emperor you play as, but not really the rest of the Emperors you play as. No, they don't really talk, but all the characters you pick are very expressive. Also the fact that every unit in this game can be chosen as an Emperor. Whether they're human looking, whether they're not human looking, whatever, they can be chosen as the Emperor. Although one pet peeve for me is the fact that only the first generation do you get this special royal looking armor that I was hoping the other Emperors would get, but they don't. But on the plus side, it does mean the story can have moments where people don't recognize that you're the Emperor and play into that for the side quest, whether it be as a gag or stuff people being like, yeah, we're gonna do this, play to screw the Empire. Oh fuck, that's the Emperor right there.
Like that ninny of an Emperor, 'twould be too easy to knock that crown off. And their head along with it. Ha ha! Surely you jest. You're not really the Emperor, are you?
Kind of scenario. So stuff like that, they take advantage of the fact that the Emperor doesn't really look all royal type after the first generation. Stuff like that. Overall, just a super fun game to play in general, and the final boss of this game is probably that's definitely the hardest boss I've ever played in an RPG in literal years. That's when I've seen a boss fight kick my ass this much was like Octopath Traveler 1's freaking super boss. That's a super boss. This is an actual final boss that tests, hey, how good are you against mechanics? Hey, how much do you know? How much can you customize your stuff and freaking work around it in a moment of battle? It is a freaking cool final boss fight and everything. So that's what I gotta say. This game is awesome, and it's great that it recently got ported to Switch 2, so that means people got Switch 2. Hey, console's new, got an RPG looking for, Remake of Saga 2, Version of 7. If you're not on Switch 2, hey, you got an old RPG that came out in 2024, that'll most likely be discounted by now. You can play this game. That's all I gotta say. Alright then, good day.